All right, welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the end of First Kings. We did it, we made it, and today we are talking about the downfall of Ahab. So, last week we got a little bit of a taste of Ahab kind of as a ruler, how he governed. We saw him deal with Aram coming forward and causing trouble. We saw him dealing with Naboth and his vineyard, and Naboth not wanting to sell the king something that he really wanted. And today we pick back up with the conflict with Aram, and I'm curious if you all have some initial opinions or thoughts about this story, because we get to see a little bit of the inner workings of the court. We get to see a little bit of the culture come through here. I mean, I'll explain the history and the context, but I'm curious what you all thought of this process of prophecy in court and what it's like to be at court here.
Mhm.
Any initial thoughts?
I have to go back and look, but isn't this just story with the person, the prophet who always has something important to say and says it,
Mm-hmm.
in contrast to everybody else who just says, "Oh, things are going great," and this is really a very important aspect of any governance is to have somebody who will tell it like it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get that very sharp contrast between the very obvious yes men and the honest person, but also the leader's reactions to the yes men versus to the honest person. We'll definitely hit upon that in detail, but that is an interesting dynamic. Any other initial thoughts?
I don't, I know they've talked about 40 prophets before. It's kind of, it doesn't, I'm not quite sure how that works to have 40 prophets. They just call on to, and then they just say what they don't really, I don't know. It just seemed odd to have 40 prophets.
I thought it was 400.
400, sorry.
Yeah, okay. That's a
I thought it
lot.
was 40. Oh, yeah. All those prophets. And they had that, a lot of prophets when they had the contest between uh, Yahweh and Baal.
Mm-hmm.
It also, but it's not the same as having one person, and I accepted that one person is going to be more honest, and he really it isn't really until he's pushed.
Mm-hmm. So we have the contrast of numbers, and I'm gonna just take a wild guess and say 400 is one of those numbers that's just a very big number. They didn't count. Um, in 40 being it like 400's related to 40 and 40 is our really big number, so this is our really, really big number. So this is just the room is full is the way to think about it.
Is the word prophet used differently here? They sound kind of like they're a bunch of,
So there is a slight difference between a priest and a prophet. So, I would have to do more research to talk more in depth about it, but a priest has duties specifically in religious, specific, their duties are much more confined. A priest is going to be the one doing the sacrifices. The priests are the ones who are trained in the prayers. The priests are the ones who are trained how to butcher the animals. And they have a job that is much more similar to like my job or like a priest of the Catholic Church. So they are your official clergy. Prophet is a little bit more nebulous. It is not like it is a job, but it's not an inherited job necessarily. Sometimes it is. These are more like your intellectuals or they're kind of courtesan or the people in the court, they're advisors. They do have a religious element to them, but they're not allowed to do sacrifices unless you have a combined role. So like Samuel was both like had some priestly duties, but he was also prophet. That's not actually the norm for, as I understand, for a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys are important people that advise the king. They are advisors, but like advisors with a religious tilt to them. They are more, they are given to bouts of ecstasy, as we have seen with them, like partying and dancing and like getting, like they're also hype men. So they'll get the spirit going, get the hype up. Um, and so I'm trying to think of what would be an equivalent because they like you have one point where the prophets are like the king's cabinet. But there's another point where they're kind of, if you think about how like monks are, they're not priests, but they're like in a different religious category, but they're not monks. Yeah, Gretchen?
I was going to say that sometimes they can be from outside the whole system. Uh,
Right.
and, you know, actually, prophets are not really somebody you necessarily want in government.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
There's sort of the thinkers who look at the world in a different way and see the same things, but note them in a different way. I think priests, it just seems like the role is just kind of, like you say, it's all established and everything, but prophets, they're kind of out there and they're disturbing in many ways because they're kind of, like you say, nebulous. Eh, or how do you trust a
Oh,
prophet, you know?
they're supposed to have direct contact with God.
Supposed to. Yes.
Yeah, but they don't really, it's not really clear whether this particular one who's Micaiah, uh, first he lies, or we don't know whether that's a lie, and then he tells a different story.
We'll talk about the lie. He's being strategic here. He's not. There is a reason why he doesn't tell the truth at first.
Gary had a comment.
Yeah.
I had a question. How does the prophet earn his title? Doesn't he have at one point have proven that he had a direct line to God?
So that is a great question and a hard answer. Um, so there's kind of the two sides of being a prophet, and this is the catch-22. A lot of people, so the way to make a living off of being a prophet is to be a prophet that people like. If you're a prophet that no one likes, you're destitute. And this is why Jeremiah, one of my favorite prophets, is a very unhappy guy. He has no nice things to say, and he lives in poverty the whole time. No one likes him because he always comes in and preaches doom and gloom. He is correct, but no one wants to hear it, so no one supports him. If you're a prophet, you kind of need like a few sponsors to keep you going. So you need to say things in a way that people believe. So if you need to, there's probably, actually, here we go. Here's a weird way. This is going to be a weird comparison, but hear me out. It's going to make there is actually corollaries. Is thinking about how influencers come to prominence today. So if you are starting out as an influencer, you have like you're trying to like be important, you're trying to get people to pay attention, you have a message and you're trying to get brands to pay attention to you and you're saying, "Hey, look, I have this many people that pay attention to me." And but often the influencers that tell people things they want to hear are the ones that get the brand deals and the ones that make the money. but they're not making money just by being an influencer. They're making money because important people pay attention to them. That kind of mechanism is how I think prophets are making a living off of this. That you start with like small things and you prophesy in small areas. And if you slowly gain a reputation of being a good prophet, you'll get the attention of major people. And if you're important enough, you'll be invited to court to be one of the 400, but you have to be sponsored. You don't just make money doing this. This is an elevated position where you have to market in public opinion. But that's why a lot of prophets also, the unpopular ones, have day jobs. This guy that they go and get, he's not popular. They go and get him from whatever he's doing to earn a living because no one, he's right, but no one wants to listen to him. So if that kind of makes sense of the like how these prophets are in the court versus the ones that are not in court and how they're making money and supporting their families.
And
But also,
let's say the prophet is there's something about prophets not being paid attention to in their own land or something like that.
So here's the
Maybe I'm thinking of Jesus.
no, it's a thing. So here's also the difficult dichotomy. There is probably always going to be more prophets that say good things because people want to hear good things.
Yeah.
And so the prophets that say difficult things are the ones that aren't believed in their time, because if you remember, we've referenced it's a section in Deuteronomy. How do you know if a prophet is true? It's if their words come true. And a lot of them, their words don't come true until they die. And so a lot of correct prophets, a lot of prophets that are actually in communication with God are not well liked, are kind of persecuted in their time, but yes men prophets will be very prominent. Jeremiah all the time fights with all the other court prophets who are the yes men. There's a lot more of them than there are of him. He's one guy saying no, and there's like 100 guys saying yes. So, but the other thing that you have to keep in mind is in an agricultural, farming, or herding world, being a prophet's a pretty good gig. So a lot of people want the job of a prophet because if all you have to do is say yes to the king, be a cheerleader for the king, that's good money if you can make it. All right. So that's enough context, I think, for now. Let's jump in to the actual conflict in the verse now that we have an idea of who these guys are. So, not last week, but the week before, we had the conflict with Aram, and they ended up like duking it out a little bit. God came in and won the battle for Ahab, and it seems like it bought them 3 years of peace. But after 3 years, they're going at it again. And here comes King Jehoshaphat of Judah. Oh yeah, Gretchen? Check your mute first.
I just wondered if is there a modern day place that corresponds with Aram, or is it a place that's gone? And is it like kind of beside Israel so that the two get together? I mean, I'm just curious.
All right. Let me see if I can pull a map up real quick. Okay. All right. I didn't preload any maps, so this might be smaller than usual. So this actually, let's see if I can. Oh.
Okay.
So you have this is where modern day Israel is if you put these two together. Phoenicia is this little strip along the coast here.
Right.
The Philistines traditionally are in this strip where Gaza is.
Mhm.
This is the beginning of the Assyrian Empire.
Okay.
Babylon is further east. So Babylon's over here, and Babylon is already like going. It's not hitting empire stage yet, but it is going. Assyria will be the next big power to attack and come down. So Aram is a little bit of like a similar size territory.
Mm.
It looks like it's in the Syria kind of with
Yeah.
Damascus. Okay, so it's not very close to Judah, which is interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yes. So that was actually going to be my next point.
Hmm.
The king of Judah comes to help. And the question is, why? These countries typically don't get along. I mean, they were one and then they split into two and then there's rivalries between them. Why would the king of Judah come? I don't the answer, if you have notes at the bottom, it will explain it, but anyone have any guesses of why the king of Judah would be here?
For the spoils?
Possibly. That's probably part of it. I mean, you go to war, you do get the rewards if you win, so it's a gamble always.
Where is Clay? Is she reading the answer to us? Please, Clay.
All right, I'll give you all this one because it's not as apparent in the text, and I'm not quite sure where this information comes from. But the notes are saying that Judah in the intervening time has become a vassal kingdom to Israel. So in other words, both of them are independent kingdoms, but Israel has become so powerful that the king of Judah pays tribute to Ahab, which is not a good state to be in, but they are allowed to be independent. And so because the big kingdom is going to war, he says, "Hey, vassal king, come help." And so that's why the king of Judah is here, is because Israel is more powerful, and they're paying tribute. And one of the ways you pay tribute is when they need people to go to war, you have to bring your people to go to war.
So he just comes to visit. King Jehoshaphat just comes to visit. And that gives the king of Israel the idea that well, you're here. Let's talk about this piece of land that belongs to us. That's what it sounds like.
So it's the piece of land that kind of gives us a clue that says that Judah is a vassal kingdom. They're already a vassal kingdom. So
Okay.
it doesn't say it in the text, but it sounds like Ahab sent for Jehoshaphat and said, "Come." And so one of the things is they're going to settle this piece of land, and that's kind of payment for you coming to war with me. So they're making peace, but Judah is also a vassal at this point. So if you remember, what Aram was trying to do is make Israel a vassal of Aram, but in the end, they were able to maintain independence, but Israel is now making Judah a vassal state. So sometimes it is easier to just subjugate the king and make them pay taxes rather than have to deal with the administration yourself. So that's where he's at the end of verse 4, it says, "I am as you are, my people are your people, my horses are your horses." This is a dedication. This is like a pledge of like, yeah, you're the leader. But the one thing that Jehoshaphat requires, because Jehoshaphat is we get later on in the text, we are told that he is a good Hebrew fearing guy or Hebrew God fearing guy. He has the temple in Jerusalem. He walks in the steps of his father. He is a good king. He follows the Lord. And so he says, "Hey, before we do this, let's check in with the Lord. Let's check in with specifically Yahweh specific. We're not checking in with the other gods. We're checking in with the Israelite God." and let's see what the Israelite God has to say. And so that's when the king of Israel gathers a whole bunch of prophets together, which is interesting because that means, like we've been told because of the past, that they killed all the prophets of Baal, which means there were still prophets of the Lord hanging around. That in the power vacuum of Jezebel's prophets like being killed and not being in court, Ahab had to backfill basically his own people into that court advisory position.
Yeah, there's no, I forgot, is Jezebel dead? Did you get killed?
Jezebel's
No,
still living.
she's not mentioned in this.
Nope, she is
Oh,
not.
okay.
Don't worry, we'll get to her. She's not done. She's not done yet. My favorite move of Jezebel is still yet to come.
So it's in Second Kings, huh?
Yeah, it's in Second Kings.
We have that to look forward to. Oh.
Yeah. Uh, anyway, so it what we have the question. So they're in court. We're given later on an image that these two kings are both sitting in thrones in their full regalia, which actually, like, it is interesting because it actually positions them kind of as equals, even though Ahab is technically the superior king. They're both in robes, they're both in thrones. And where is it? We get the information that they're sitting on the threshing floor.
Mhm.
Do you all we've talked about the threshing floor before. What do you all remember about this space? What is it? Where is it? Anyone remember?
It's up on a high level. Uh, yeah, it's elevated.
Yes, it is. What is the threshing floor used for? Do you all remember?
Threshing. And the chaff flies off because of the wind.
Mm-hmm.
Also use it for sacrifice, I think.
Right. It's because it's a big open space, often on a hilltop.
Mhm.
So here you go. Here's an image. We brought this up when we talked about where the temple in Jerusalem was built. This is kind of an image where this would be on a high place. And it's often like you like beat the wheat until you get the seeds, and then the oxen turn about to like break it apart. And yeah, the chaff, the outside husk of it blows away. And because it's on a high place in a hill, you just get like it blows downwind. But when it's not harvest season, because kings go to war in spring, so in March, the harvest isn't ready yet. So it's a place where you can meet to do things because there's no food to process here. And so it's easy enough to set up two thrones, and there's a big amount of space for a large crowd of people to do religious things. But notably, it's out in the open. They're not in a building. This is outside. And we get the note that they're in Samaria. Samaria is a very mountainous place. And so they're on the top of a mountain, sitting outside, having a bunch of prophets throw a party, more or less.
Hmm. Hmm.
So Ahab and Jehoshaphat are sitting, they're watching this, and all of the 400 are going, yes, king, go to war, you're gonna win, you're gonna do a good job. And so as a prophet, or a person who has the job of court prophet, why would this be your choice? To say, yes, king, go to war. You're gonna win, you'll do glorious, your hair is so shiny, your weapons are so sharp, no one compares to you. Why is that the main response?
Well, and in this case, it's good theater. I mean, it not only is it puts the horns on, boy, is that an impressive kind of setting, and so much easier to say yes, things are going to go well than to be a downer and say I don't really, or to say you don't know. I mean, there would be the
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Let's see, think about what is the accountability. So if your words don't come true, then you're not a true prophet. But the king may be gone anyway, so you've already perjured
Hmm.
yourself or whatever.
Yeah, if the king dies, you've lost your job.
Mhm.
So, yeah, in some ways, it's in your very good interest to say good things.
Mhm.
So, which do you actually think would be harder to do? To say, I have a bad feeling about this one, or to say, I don't know this time. Like, God's been silent to me. Which
Mhm.
one's worse?
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, go for it.
Well, if you've ever been in a meeting and been the one person who had a different idea, uh, that is a very uncomfortable. And, in some groups, they just don't even hardly take that.
Mhm.
They drown you out. But it's still hard to be the person saying, I'm not so sure about this idea. This is, we know this from all kinds of places where people make decisions. We have to guard against it ourselves to really look at things.
Yeah. So is like thinking about it that way, like Ahab's almost made a situation where it's not like hearing his advisors one at a time and like giving their thoughts time and attention. He's kind of throwing a party, a big old hype session, which for morale is probably a good thing. Like he's done well in the past. The last time people prophesied for him, a man came forward and said, God will do this on your behalf. You now have the guy whose kingdom that evidently this God lives in. And so, like, it could sound right that all of these guys are like going like, yes, okay, we're gonna do it again, just like last time. And maybe it's not a party. Maybe this is more of a pep rally.
Mhm.
So, and because it's a very public place, and if you're gonna go to war, you need to get the population excited by it. They need to throw the parade so mothers are willing to send their sons and their husbands. You need to justify why they should be at war and not farming. So let's throw the pep rally, and yeah, all these prophets, they're the cheerleaders doing their routine to make sure everyone feels pumped up for the home game.
Mhm.
Very good analogy.
Mhm. But Jehoshaphat is not convinced. He's looking at this going, okay, buddy. Is there any is do we have any dissension? Like all of these guys, it's not just that yes, it's a hell yeah. Is there anyone else we could bring? And the king's response is, yeah, but he never says anything good. So what do you think of this response? Like he knows this guy, but he's
Mhm.
also like, this guy's a real bummer. Like I don't want to bring like we're having a pep rally. Don't bring the bummer of the killjoy here. But Jehoshaphat wants the killjoy.
Mhm.
So what do you think of this? Ahab evidently knows this guy and evidently knows him enough to not want him around. Is it just because it's hard to hear dissension? People don't like bad news?
Well, I'm also thinking about Jehoshaphat and his desire to hear the other side,
Mhm.
because maybe he's not so keen on this going against his nation and not so keen on taking his people to what might be a sacrifice, blood,
Hmm.
a bloodbath.
Yeah,
Mhm.
this isn't his problem, technically.
Okay.
If he doesn't have to bring his men, I think he's like, you need to convince me this is a good
Um,
enough idea to get my people killed over this. which shows that even while he's a vassal, he does still seem to have enough power to challenge Ahab about this, which is interesting. He's not a yes man.
Mm-hmm.
So they do, evidently, Micaiah is not far away, so they bring him. And this is where we get the description where they're on the threshing floor, they're robed, they're sitting on their thrones. But the guy who goes and gets him tells him like, "Hey, make sure to say the right thing. We're doing a pep rally. Like, come on, like be a part of the spirit." And so when Micaiah or we get one guy who is like, this one is a prophetic action. He like has a horn that he's fashioned, and it's literally with this horn you're gonna conquer the other guys. So that is meant to be a proof where it's something very concrete. And so you could tell if he was correct or not because here's an object, you are gonna win by it. And so the guy who goes and gets him is like, "Hey, we're doing this whole pep rally thing. Say the right thing." And then the first thing he says is, uh, well, he responds, "As the Lord lives, I will say whatever God says to me." So like, hush up. I know what my job is. I know how to do my job. I'm not just gonna fall over. However, the first thing he says is, "Go up and triumph," which Sue, you said that he lied. What's going on here? Why would he go up and immediately kind of like agree with everyone? Why is that his strategy? Is he like, "Yes, King Ahab, go up and triumph," or is he like, "Ahab, go up and triumph"? Like what tone of voice is he using? What is the implication here?
I'm hearing sarcasm like he's mocking all the other yes men.
Yeah,
Wow.
he knows what he's supposed to do, and he'll do what he's supposed to do, but he won't do it well. And evidently this is out of character enough, which means yeah, he's mocking Ahab. It's out of character that Ahab looks at him and goes, "Hey buddy, I told you, don't do that. Be honest with me." And so there's something in his tone that Ahab immediately knows this guy's not being serious.
I thought that he probably said that knowing that Ahab would come back at him, and then he could tell him the truth.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly what's going on. Like,
It's a setup.
it's a setup. It's one of those of like, is this what you want to hear, King? Okay, if do you want to hear what you want to hear, or do you want to hear the actual prophecy I have for you? So yeah, Gary, 100%. This is a setup to get the king to actually listen. It also shows that he understands the situation. He understands that he's at a pep rally. So after King Ahab's like, "Come on, let's just get this over with. Give me the bad news because you always have bad news for me. Be honest with me." Um, what he starts giving an image that we have two prophecies that are the second one's much more detailed. The first one is that all of Israel will be scattered on the mountains like sheep that have no shepherd. And the Lord says they have no master. Let each one go home in peace. So what would you all interpret this prophecy to mean? What's the implication here?
They're going to lose the battle, and everybody's just going to be scattered all over and going for their own shelter or homes.
So why does it imply that Ahab's gonna die? Like what in this does it say, oh, Ahab's gonna, like, specifically he's gonna die? Yeah, Gretchen?
They have no shepherd.
They have no shepherd.
Mm.
The second one, part of that is let each one go home in peace. What do you all take that to mean? So like there's the shepherd's gonna be gone. They're going to scatter over the hills. They'll go home in peace.
Don't do it.
Well, that'll be the end of the conflict if they all go home in peace. It's like,
Yeah.
they're taking flight. They're
Mhm.
retreating. So that's not going to be good for Israel if they've all retreated and Aram comes in and just takes him, becomes their shepherd, so to speak.
The implication is also slightly that the sheep are better without this particular shepherd. The sheep will be at peace.
Yeah, good one.
You see, I just was reading through this, and they always say King of Israel. They don't give him a name. What's his name?
Ahab.
Israel is Ahab?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
king of Israel is still Ahab. Remember, Israel is the northern kingdom, the bad kingdom. Judah is the southern kingdom.
Oh, okay.
This goes against
Israel
our.
is Ahab. Okay.
I know it is interesting
Oh,
that
I keep getting Ahab. Okay, I got it.
yeah.
Me too.
There's like two elements to this. Is this story is weird because it doesn't use Ahab's name. All the other times it typically does reference Ahab by name. But I think calling him king of Israel, it kind of grinds against our modern assumptions because when we think king of Israel, we think David, we think Jerusalem. But Jerusalem's no longer in Israel.
Right.
And so this is the time we're going to have to keep reminding ourselves, Israel is the northern kingdom. Israel is the bad kingdom. Judah is the southern kingdom. Judah is the good kingdom.
And Israel gets carted off to Babylonia. Okay.
But not yet. No,
Yeah.
Not yet.
Assyria.
Not yet. I know.
Yeah.
But this whole defeat, this whole thing of Ahab saying, I'm going to disguise myself so nobody will know that I'm the king. And so that, in battle, you're not going after the leader. Everybody they'll just ignore him. He's just another guy.
Hold on to that thought just for a moment because that situation is very clever and kind of
Yeah.
dastardly of Ahab. Yeah, Clay, did you have a thought?
Well, I just found the whole section here interesting that in order to get him to go and be killed, we're going to put the lying spirit into everybody else's words. I don't know if that's the devil or what that is, but that's how it's going to work. We're going to make all these people say you should go.
Right. So that's the
the
second
way that was presented. I just found that intriguing.
Yeah, that's the second prophecy. So he prophesies that Ahab's gonna die, but then he prophesies what else is going on. So he gets a glimpse into heaven. And so their imagination of how God works is similar to how their king and their court works. So God is considered the king of heaven. So God sits on God's throne, and kind of like Ahab is surrounded by his court, God is surrounded by God's court of heavenly beings. This, in their imagination, is the realm that is above the sky. So the heavenly court is up, and it is like it functions much the way they imagine their system works. And so the king God, is making a call saying, okay, we need Ahab to die. How are we going to make Ahab die? And the court, the heavenly host, says, hey, why don't we make all of his advisors, they're going to pump him up so he goes to war. And so that's the explanation of why all of the prophets are yes men. It's because the God's court has put a lying spirit on all of them. Now, quick reminder, this is a point in time where the devil does not exist. Satan has not been invented yet. That whole idea comes much later. So there is no demonic spirit here. This is God playing both sides. So God's messengers, God's angels, God's heavenly host are willing to do deceitful things for the will of God, which is a different worldview than ours today. So the word Satan comes from Satan. Satan appears kind of first in Job, but in Job, the Satan is called the adversary, and Satan is kind of like a lawyer, and the Satan is part of God's heavenly court. And it's just one of the angels. And so we see that here at play too, where one of the angels, one of the heavenly court, is willing to do things to challenge humanity. So they're not evil, even though they make people do bad things.
Well, they're doing it for God.
They're doing it for God, and they're doing it for God's purpose. The ends justify the means here.
But the prophets had earlier been very positive about going to war. So now God's getting involved to shore them up and make sure that they continue to promote a war.
The thing I would compare this to is if you remember the 10 plagues, a plague would come, Pharaoh would be like, oh no, this is awful. And then God would harden Pharaoh's heart and make Pharaoh more stubborn. So God could show more powerful feats. This is kind of a similar thing where it's like, we are going to pump him up so he does the wrong thing.
Okay.
But then we have this, I love this interaction. This is a really funny one. The guy who made the horn and said, hey, King Ahab's gonna kill the other king with this. He walks up, slaps Micaiah over the face, and he's like, what spirit made me slap you? Amazing. Those who have a really good memory might remember this actually happens to Jesus as well. When he's being tried at the high priest's house, this is Matthew 26, verse 20. Where is this? Verses 30, 67, and 68. They spat on his face and struck him. Some slapped him, saying, prophesy to us, Messiah. Who was it that struck you? So evidently this is just a common insult for prophets or people who are considered to be prophets. They're like, slap, what made me do that? You should have seen it coming. Why didn't you duck? Anyways, and the response is, you're about to die. You'll find out soon what spirit made you do that, which is also top comeback there. Great job. No notes. And so they go and they basically put him on house arrest because he prophesied everyone's gonna die. And he's like, we'll come get you in peace. And he's like, well, that's not gonna happen. So I guess I'm just in house arrest for now. Anyways, but then we go to the battle. And so let's, Gretchen, you brought up the attire of Ahab. So he says to Jehoshaphat, you ride in the carriage or in the chariot with all your kingly robes on. I'm going to look like a commoner. What's the strategy here? Why is Ahab doing this and telling his buddy to look like the king while he's going to look like a commoner?
Is he afraid that the one prophet is correct?
Yes, he is.
Oh.
Good one.
Yeah, the seed of doubt's been planted in his mind that the other side's trying to kill him. So why is it bad to look like a king on a battlefield?
Gary is laughing, so he has an answer.
Are you waiting for the answer? Well, it's obvious that would be your first target. Take care
Uh-huh.
of the king, the morale
Okay.
and the organization of the whole battle could disintegrate.
Mhm.
Uh-huh. If you're on defense on a football team, who's your main target?
Quarterback.
Quarterback.
Quarterback. Which is, I mean, so here's like kings have two things. So yeah, you want to take out the king. You also want to be the guy who took out the king. The king is often most heavily armored, so it's also the most dangerous thing is to try to take out the king, but like high risk, high reward. But yeah, he's gonna be a target. And so instead, Ahab is called a vassal king to help him. And he tells the vassal king, you ride in the chariot with the glory and the honor. Like you get the credit for being king in this battle. I'm just gonna look like no one.
Mhm.
What's the strategy here?
Well, you can get rid of Jehoshaphat. I mean, in truth.
Yeah, he can take over Judah if Jehoshaphat dies, and also Jehoshaphat's the target, not him. So he's a decoy. He's using Jehoshaphat as a decoy.
Mhm. And yet when they see that it's Jehoshaphat, they turn away. They say it's not the guy we're after.
Right. So they start chasing him. They do go after the dude in the king robes. Um, but the my notes were saying when it says that Jehoshaphat cried aloud, it sounds like Jehoshaphat has a very distinct battle cry. It's not the weepy cry, it's the like war cry, and it's distinctive enough that at a distance people are like, wait, that's not Ahab. And that would be something that would clue the army in, not like, oh, that doesn't look like his face. Oh, guys, we're following the wrong guy.
Oh.
It's a war cry.
Okay, I wondered how they could recognize him because it really doesn't say. Okay, that's
Yeah. So that is one where it is a call for help. Like, hi, I'm the king. Come here, soldiers, protect me. But it's also, it helps to have something that is distinct so your people know to come to you.
Mm.
One thing that is very hard in the ancient world, as I understand, is how do you tell armies apart when you're from the same culture? And so this is a problem throughout history until we get standardized uniforms, which comes much, much later. But there's a lot of collateral damage where you accidentally kill your own people all the time. So you need a code so you know that we're on the same side.
Interesting.
The irony is Ahab does get hit by a nobody.
Yeah.
And so,
Without trying, even without the guy wasn't even trying to hit a king. I mean, he's trying to hit a person, but he ended up there.
mhm.
But he's in an ordinary soldier's regalia or uniform, so he becomes a victim.
And most likely the kingly armor is better armor than your common soldier. So it sounds like there is some kind of like plate that he has, but the thing is you always need joints of movement. And so it got him in the gaps of his armor, which that is really hard to do, and most people do it on accident. Because like what it basically is, it's like shooting for the shoulder joint and getting between the ribs. You shoot for the person hoping to pierce metal or to get it in the gaps. And so this person literally struck the king down by two bouts of chance. Got the gap in the armor, just shooting at a random soldier. So they put Ahab in a chariot where he's bleeding out. Why
Mhm.
would you put him in a chariot and kind of like hide him?
Well, you don't want to see what they do to a defeated king.
Yeah, so number one, you don't want the enemy to know that the king is down because they do bad things to bodies. Why else do you not want it to be seen that the king is bleeding out?
You want to be still in control. It looks like he's still standing up there fighting, even though he's just being carried around.
Yeah, so like Jehoshaphat's still in battle. There's still a chance that like they don't want to lose to Aram, but their own army will run away if they think their king's dead.
And it says they propped him up,
Uh-huh.
chariot, you know, as he's bleeding out, so that he looks
Yeah.
good.
An easy way to do this. So you can have someone standing behind the king that makes it look like they're protecting him, but they're like weekend at Bernie keeping him upright as they're riding around, trying to, yeah, make it look like the king's still fighting, but he's not. And at some point, though, at sunset, when the sun is setting, every man for his own country, the battle is evidently hard enough that no one quite wins. And so just everyone scatters at sunset. Um, Unlike today, where war is like kind of continuous, in the ancient world, you have battles and they have starts and they have finishes, and then you regroup. But evidently, this one is scattered enough. They're just everyone to their own hills. The people will be like sheep, going home in peace.
Yeah.
So true enough, the prophecy comes true. The people scatter. They drive Ahab as fast as they can back to Samaria, but by the time they get there, the king is bled out and dead. And then they need to they're washing him off and they're washing the chariot off, and they're washing a whole lot of blood out of this chariot. And what we get is that dogs are licking it up and prostitutes are bathing in it. Why is this detail put in there? Does anyone remember?
Somebody prophesied.
Yes. Elijah, our good boy Elijah, told the king and queen the dogs will lap up your blood in the streets. The one thing that's not quite accurate is this doesn't Ahab was told that this would happen in Jezreel. It does not happen in Jezreel. It happens in Samaria. But we still have Jezebel yet to go. So hold on for that one. So Ahab sleeps with his ancestors after losing the battle. And then we get a little bit about a few kings. We get a little bit about Jehoshaphat. We're told when he starts to reign, how long he's reigned. 35. He was 35 and reigns for 25 years. Not a bad job. The kings of Judah tend to last longer than the kings of Israel. We get his mother's name, and we are told he does what is right, but he did not take down the high places, which is surprising. So, like, he didn't do all of the things. There's still a little bit of polytheism just lingering under the surface, but he gets rid of the male temple prostitutes because that one is really seen as a foreign practice, which is probably why there is verses about this in Leviticus. It's that one where that is referencing a man shall not lie with a man. It's referencing likely male prostitution. And so here we see that it's not just that they have a thing against male prostitution. It's because it is considered a polytheistic practice from the Canaanite area. So don't do this Canaanite thing. And so he kicked out the male prostitutes. But we get a little, we get the end of his reign. We do get a little bit that he, like Solomon, tries to set up a maritime business. Did not go well. Israel keeps trying to set up ports, tries to build boats. They're not boat people. They're sheep people. And so the boat adventures never go well. And then we also get Ahaziah, who is Ahab's son. Don't get much about him yet. And that wraps up First Kings. So what do you think so far of this book, of Ahab, of this battle? Final thoughts for today?
Well, I think, there could be, if somebody doesn't have a life, there is something to be said for just taking a little section and reading Chronicles right next to it, just to get the sense. I mean, Kings is so wonderfully told, the stories. And Chris, with everything you bring out, you feel more and more like you're there. Contrast to Chronicles, which are not that interesting. But if you don't have anything else to do tonight, you can't get to sleep.
Oh man.
But
Yeah.
this really comes alive. First Kings is
Yeah.
Mhm.
What's interesting, this story is at times kind of chatty, informal. Like when he says, I hate, what's his name? The Micaiah. I hate Micaiah. He always says, it's just, hmm.
Well,
There's a lot of psychology in this, and without Chris's background, I would not have understood all of the nuances of what was going on. So I really appreciated that.
Oh, thanks.
I agree. And
It's
certainly Israel has bad luck in getting in their kings. You have Ahab, who's an evil person, and his son is, and he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord,
mhm,
served Baal.
mhm.
But we have to remember that this was written by Judah.
Yes.
Mhm.
The well, they're not really victors in the long, but they live longer than Israel. Israel goes down first.
So yes. To add, we'll get to this exactly how it goes, but the short of it is Israel gets thrown into exile first, not by Babylon, but by Assyria. And then Babylon conquers Assyria, but unlike when Persia conquers Babylon, Babylon the does not send the people in captivity home. So in a way, the people of Israel are twice diasporaed. First by Assyria, then by Babylon, and that's a long enough period of time where they kind of just scatter, which is where we get the lost 10 tribes. We know what happened to them. They were kind of just like mixed in and they were taken out of their land for so long that there was not really a good core of people to come back. Whereas Israel is only held in captivity for 70 years. That's 2 generations. And so they were able to like hold on with a death grip to their traditions. So when they were sent back, they had their stories. That's why their version of it survives, where Israel's does not.
Mhm.
Some of Israel's stories get worked into Judah's stories, which is why if you remember when we were way back in Genesis, I told you the 4-source theory, and one of them is that 2 of the sources, one is from Judah, one is from Israel. We just get the dominance of the Israel story, especially in this part of the Bible. We're getting Israel's perspective on it.
Or Judah's.
Or Judah, sorry. Yeah, we're getting Judah's perspective on this. Thank you. I see, even I mixed
Yeah, I know.
And so, if you remember a few weeks back, I sent you all a bunch of videos. One of them was about the Samaritans, who's this tiny subgroup that didn't get diasporaed and held on to their traditions a little bit closer. They have the northern version, and some of their stories are a little bit different. A lot of them are like more or less the same, but they have different traditions, and they consider themselves Samaritan Jews. And so that tradition does exist. It just never kind of solidified in the same way that the Southern tradition did. So we'll get to all of that in detail, though. You'll be masters of war and diaspora, because that's all that's coming up next.
Thanks.
So Just as a reminder, I am gone next week, so we will have 1 week break between First and Second Kings, and then after that we will pick up in First Kings, and then we will be racing to the end, and we will get there. It's a lot more war. A lot. King Ahab is probably the longest narrative. We're gonna talk about. I think we're gonna get the death of Jezebel soon, which is another one where you're gonna get a lot more information that's not apparent on the text because I love this story. She's my girl. She's the villain of the story, and I love her. Anyways,
There's a
any
lot of
final
good
thoughts
stories.
any final thoughts for today?
Great.
All right, let's pray. Gracious and loving God, we know that there's a lot of people out there that would love to tell us what we want to hear, that want to affirm what we already think because they think that will make them powerful or give them influence. But God, we ask today for a spirit of truth and a spirit of justice, that we might see through the yes people and be humble enough to hear the critiques and the things we don't want to hear. Because God, while we know there's things that we're probably wrong about, we generally think that we're right, and we just ask that we be open to your word and the ways that it challenges us to grow and to think differently, to think complexly with nuance and care. So be with us throughout this week and next until we're able to gather again together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
All right.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Yeah, take care, everyone.
Have a good week.
Larry,
Thank you,
get
you
well.
too.
Uh-huh.